Start off with the Guardian newspaper. On the front page of the Guardian newspaper, there are big stories happening, and the biggest one here says economy in rare credit squeeze as CBN continues with 20-year high interest. MPR raised to 15.5%, highest in 20 years. CBN to debit commercial banks to effect new CRR Thursday. There are many sub-stories there. Nigerians, of course, are lamenting soaring food prices, job losses to worsen, experts warn. So this is in some form a message of doom and gloom, or a message to urge us to get ready, cross our T's and dot our I's. Federal government gets hashtag NSAS report 2 years after, promises implementation. That's on page 5. Is this exciting news? I had thought that we had gotten some reports about the NSAS movement a while back, but we don't know what was being done with that. So hearing that they're getting a report 2 years after and promising implementation, I don't know if a lot of people will be very much excited about this.
Well, it also maybe says to me that the current administration may not be in office to implement. Because of if it's taken 2 years to get the report, I'm not sure how long it would take to implement, and they're going to be out of office in just a few months, so they may not be in office to implement. I also saw that there was a court ruling awarding, some amount of money to victims of the protest. So, unfortunately, our judicial system and dispensation of justice does take a lot of time in Nigeria, but slow and steady, and hopefully, we will get, or Nigerians will get to see some justice.
It'll be interesting to see how this affects the party, because we know that they're running a lot of party politics. So if this would be score points, or detract
that
points
also
from the party.
That also.
Now, still looking on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, court orders INEC to publish names of candidates in Edo governor's faction. Wike brings back legacy 600 aircraft abandoned in Germany on page 18. Stop inducing dividing Christians, northern elders, advise APC, says Tinubu. Two more stories here. Court nullifies Ogun PDP governorship, Kebbi Central Senatorial District primaries. Final story here, 2023 elections. How Nigerian politicians deceive electorate by Peter Obi. That's all that we can take this morning on the front page. Of course, I cannot but mention, we can see photographs of women inside, it looks like some form of mud. These are farmers salvaging cassava at submerged farm in Ogbia Local Council of Bayelsa yesterday. And these are some of the houses submerged in Bayelsa. This is the rainy season. We've been talking about this. And lots of states, countries, in fact, have been affected by the flood. That's all that we can take this morning on the Guardian newspaper.
All right. Once again, it's officially campaign season, and that's why the Punch looks this way this morning. You can see a picture of the People's Democratic Party candidates, Atiku Abubakar, and the governor of Delta State, Okowa, right there. But of course, 2023 Atiku, governors land in Abuja. Tinubu Obi delay campaigns, as reported by The Punch. We can find more of that on page 2. Please put personnel on alert. IG, INEC chair to address presidential candidates. Also on The Punch this morning, businesses face cash crunch. Interest rate hits 15.5%. And finally, just a few stories, of course, on The Punch. $350,000 fraud. America jails Abiodun's ex-aide for stealing 20,000 identities. Ogun reacts. Those are the only stories on The Punch this morning.
All right, now let's move over to South Africa as we look at the Sowetan. On the front page of the Sowetan this morning, we're seeing the big story here says, too late for Zumas, or is it? ANC provinces cold towards former president, declared intent to run for chair at conference and its support for Lamini Zuma presidency. Even KwaZulu-Natal steadfast in its top 6 preferences. The details of that's on page 6. Mom loses appeal against killing abusive hobby. Domestic violence and abuse, and there's so many behind the scenes stories we would need to look at. The details of this is on page 2. Hollywood comes visiting. Thuso walks out in Josie. That's on page 9. For those who've seen I think it's the Woman King, you probably should be able to recognize, I think you should recognize her. And at the top of the paper, what's holding up Manyama ex-chief's man made to wait for deal back page, and we break bread with Usher and bump into his divine self on page 9. Forget load shedding, here's road shredding on page 16. Conversations about load shedding have been ongoing in South Africa for a while, especially because of the challenges they faced with electricity. But that's what we can take this morning on the Sowetan.
All right, moving on to Tanzania this morning and seeing what the Citizen newspapers has for us. It says experts upbeat on growth despite global concerns. Tanzanian economists have voiced optimism about the country's economic prospects this year, despite bleak global projections following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic. The story is on page 2. Why American investors are showing interest in Tanzania. And also, electrification drive gets 770 billion shillings, World Bank shot in the arm. We can also find here how universal health insurance will be made affordable to all. Still on the Citizen this morning, top of the screen, national, it says education, UDSM, Makerere pledged to groom more leaders. And of course, genocide accused Kabuga cast a long shadow on page 10. Finally, Japan honors slain Abe at controversial funeral. That's on page 16 of the Citizen newspapers this morning. That's all the stories that we can share in the first half